Friends and relatives of Maya Angelou gathered in North Carolina Saturday for a private memorial service to remember one of the world's most famous writers of the 20th century. First Lady Michelle Obama, former President Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey were among the dignitaries who honored Angelou at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, where Maya Angelou taught for 3 decades. She died May 28th at her home in North Carolina. She was 86 years old. Born Marguerite Ann Johnson in St. Louis, Maya Angelou grew up in Arkansas in the Jim Crow South. At the age of 7 or 8, she was raped by her mother's boyfriend. He was killed shortly thereafter. As a result of the trauma, she remained virtually silent for 5 years, speaking only to her brother. She became a mother at age 17. In the 50s and 60s, she went on to become an actress, singer, and dancer. After she fell in love with a South African civil rights activist, they moved to Cairo. She later lived in Ghana, where she met Malcolm X, and the two collaborated on developing his Organization of Afro-American Unity. She returned to the United States to support the effort, but Malcolm X was assassinated shortly after her return. That tragedy and the 1968 assassination of her friend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., devastated Angelou. It was in 1969 that she was encouraged by the author James Baldwin, among others, to focus on her writing. Thus was born I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, her first of 7 autobiographies and the phenomenal career for which she's known around the world. In 1993, Maya Angelou recited her poem On the Pulse of the Morning at Bill Clinton's inauguration. She was the first poet to make an inaugural recitation since Robert Frost at John F. Kennedy's inauguration in 1961. President Clinton spoke at Saturday's memorial.
I loved Maya. The last time we were together was just a couple of weeks ago at the LBJ Library in Austin. They were having, and Andy was there, they were having a 50th anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act. And they had an all-day conference. And I gave my little talk, and we went into this lunch, and it was like a political version of the Antiques Roadshow. Bill Russell came up and hugged me and reminded me of how short I was. And I looked over and there was Maya. And I went over to her and I hugged her and I said, I cannot believe that you have gotten yourself here. And she said, just because I am wheelchair bound doesn't mean I don't get around. I will. So that's the first thing I want to say. That girl got around. Let me tell you how this all started. I first encountered Maya Angelou as a young man when I read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It was written in 1970, about the time I started law school, and shortly after it came out, I read it, and I was the one who was struck dumb. I thought, first of all, Stamps, Arkansas, where it's set, is about 25 miles from where I was born. I got a lot of relatives who live there. I knew the people she was talking about, the problems she was documenting. But the thing that struck me about the book, even more than the horrible abuse she endured and the 5 years of silence that followed, was that this little kid, the whole time all this was going on, was paying attention. She may have stopped talking, but she never stopped looking. She was paying attention and absorbing the people she saw, the patterns of life she experienced, and trying to make sense of it. She had enough experiences for 5 lifetimes. We could all just show up here and talk about a piece of her life. Think about that. She moved from being a mute child to being reunited with her mother, to being in a school of dance and drama, to being the first African-American woman to be a streetcar director in San Francisco, to having a baby, to having to be a short-order cook and other stuff to feed the baby and keep body and soul together. And that was all when she was a teenager. She wasn't even 20 years old. All that had happened to her. Then in her 20s, she was singing and dancing and acting in the U.S. and Europe. In her 30s, she became a member of the Harlem Writers Guild. By 32, she'd moved to Egypt to run a newspaper. By 33, she was living in Ghana. By then, she mastered 5 languages, went through your horrible accident with you, and how you both would compose the rest of your life. And I admire you, and I'm grateful to you for the life you have lived. And I thank you for that. And she meets Malcolm X and comes back here to work for him, and he gets killed. She goes to work for Martin Luther King, and on her 40th birthday, he gets killed. We could all just be up here talking about how Maya Angelou represented a big piece of America's history and triumphed over adversity and proved how dumb racism was. But her great gift in her action-packed life was she was always paying attention. And by the time she started writing her books and her poetry, what she was basically doing was calling our attention to the things she'd been paying attention to. And she did it with a clarity and power that will wash over people as long as there is a written and spoken word. The caged bird was the first manifestation of her great gift. Otherwise, somebody else would have had it written, that book about that little girl and what happened to her and how she couldn't talk and why she didn't talk. And she just kept calling our attention to things. I often thought of her gigantic figure as like the little fireflies we used to catch in the summertime and put in jars. And they'd just come on at unpredictable times, and they'd make you see something that you otherwise would have missed. Something right before your nose you'd been overlooking. Something in your mind you'd been burying. Something in your heart you were afraid to face. She called our attention in thousands of ways to her belief that life is a gift manifest in each new day. She called our attention to the fact that the things that really matter, dignity, work, love and kindness, are things we can all share and don't cost anything. And they matter more than the differences of wealth and power, of strength and beauty, of intellect. All that's nice if you put it to the right use. But nothing is more powerful than giving honor to the things we share. She also taught us through all those decades of challenges that life is a constant choice. Every day you got to get up and make a choice. Will you choose light or darkness? choose to reach out or draw in? Choose to speak out or shut up? Will you be paralyzed by your past and your failures, or will you forgive yourself enough to be unchanged? History, despite its wrenching pain, need not be lived again. That's what she taught me and millions of others. Here's why I think she died when she did. It was her voice. She was without a voice for 5 years, and then she developed the greatest voice on the planet. God loaned her his voice. She had the voice of God, and he decided he wanted it back for a while. So, my friend, we thank you for calling our attention to the things you paid attention to. We thank you for helping to organize our scales so that we give heavy weight to the most important things. We thank you for reminding us that on each new day we can give birth again to the dream, and that every day we should look into our sister's eyes and our brother's face, to all our nation, and say good morning. As long as we have time, we should keep the courage to begin again. That's what you did, and how blessed we are because of it.
Former President Bill Clinton speaking Saturday at the memorial service for Maya Angelou, who died on May 28th at the age of 86. After